So we can start the session now. So hello everyone, good evening. This is Shashank here. Welcome to the webinar on BigBlueButton integration with Moodle LMS. So first of all, let's start with a quick introduction about us. So myself Shashank here. I lead digital marketing at 3 Software Solutions. Along with me on the speaker panel, we have Mr. Anmol Prakash and Mr. Vires from 3E. Anmol is the VP Operations and he also lead BigBlueButton Solutions Delivery. Vires is the practice head of e-learning solutions delivery. Before I pass it on over to the speaker panel, let me give you a quick intro about 3E Software Solutions. So we are a technology company providing e-learning solutions to training, education, and corporate industries. We are versed in designing and developing full-fledged e-learning ecosystem. For example, LMS and e-commerce integration for training businesses, LMS and virtual classroom integration for academia and training, and LMS and ERP integration for corporates. Well, that is a very brief one-liner kind of intro about us. So Anmol will lead the today's webinar and he will walk you through how the BigBlueButton session works in delivering classroom-based virtual training over the Moodle and who can make use of the solution. So as the session goes on, so you may post your queries over the private chat to me or Vires, and we will take up your queries at the end of the session. So that's it. So now, without further delay, we will start the session. Anmol, now it is all over to you.
Yeah, thanks for passing on the control, Shashank. So we'll start with the introduction here. So basically, this whole session, right, is going to revolve around the integration of two very popular open source solutions, that is Moodle and BigBlueButton. To give a quick intro about Moodle, Moodle is an open source learning management system, which is widely used by schools, universities, and online tutoring platforms these days. And if we talk about BigBlueButton, BigBlueButton is again a very popular open source web conferencing tool. And we are going to see what advantages it can bring in if we integrate both these platforms. So why there is a requirement of a virtual classroom integration with any LMS? So the very first thing is it enables your learning management system and in fact your instructors to provide remote teaching. The second thing is sometimes there will be a requirement for face-to-face discussions. Okay, so those face-to-face discussions can be taken care using the BigBlueButton web conferencing tool. So in some cases there will be a doubt clarifications. Instructors would like to set up a doubt clarification sessions. So all those things can be managed within an LMS. In our case here, we are going to talk about Moodle. And with this integration, we can achieve and try to address all these line items which you just talked about, like remote teaching, face-to-face discussions, doubt clarifications. Also, the BigBlueButton has the capability for live whiteboard, and then there are certain features which we have been talking about in our previous webinars. That is live whiteboard, breakout sessions, and shared notes. There are some good unique features which BigBlueButton offers. All that can be brought up together along with the benefits of Moodle LMS. So what is that we are going to see in this webinar? What is that we are going to see? So From our last webinars, we have been getting queries about how do you actually integrate BigBlueButton with Moodle LMS. So we wanted to show how this can be done, and this whole demo will be revolving around that. So first thing is definitely how we can install a plugin of BigBlueButton on Moodle side, how we can configure it. So where can you find the configuration details? These are the other queries which we had been getting. So we'll see how to obtain the details of your BigBlueButton instance and then configure it with your BigBlueButton plugin on Moodle. And then we are going to see how you can create a, BigBlueButton activity on Moodle. And basically, it sits under a course, and then it can be accessed as an activity. We'll see how a presenter and participants can be assigned to that activity, what other configurations can be done around it. Okay. So we'll start with the demo, and once the demo is completed, probably whatever queries you're going to send to Shashank and Viresh over the private chat, we'll try to take up those queries and try to answer them. So I hope my screen is visible to all, and if you are having any trouble viewing the screen, you can drop a message to Shashank or Viresh. They will be able to address your issue. So as a very first thing, since we are talking about plugin installation of BigBlueButton, what we are going to do is I'm going to log in as a super admin of the system. So once I'm logged in as a super admin, I see interface with some information about the server, and then there are some courses which are already available here. Okay, and this is just a course, placeholder course. I'll show you how the activity, BigBlueButton activity, can be configured as part of it. But the very first thing which we are going to do here is we are going to first download the plugin which we have to install. And to download the plugin, you can go over, go under the plugin repositories of Moodle, and there you can search for BigBlueButton. This plugin is available from the community side, and it is available for different versions of Moodle. It supports the latest version of Moodle, and we're going to download it. So since in our case we are using 3.8 version of Moodle, and this plugin is already set to the Moodle version for Moodle 3.8, you can download this. So the plugin is downloaded now, and the next thing which I'm going to do over here is as an administrator, I have the privilege to access the site administration. And if you see the site administration interface, it looks something like this, where you will have the option of plugins, and there will be another option to install plugins. So if I select install plugins, so the interface will be something similar to this, and the only thing which you have to do is just drag and drop the plugin file. That it will be in a .zip file. You can drop it. It will validate it against its version and check whether it is compatible with the current version of Moodle or not. So after everything is done, it will you can go ahead and install the plugin. So since the plugin which I have just downloaded, it's in the beta phase, it is giving me warning here that it is a beta version, and although all those other validations has been successful, and then we can continue with the installation. So once you click on continue, it will check all the it will do some checks on the server side, especially the plugin PHP extensions which are required for this plugin. And if everything is okay, you can click on continue, and it will show you that okay, this BigBlueButton plugin is going to be installed, and it is mentioned over here to be installed. So we can ignore the other options. These are just plugins which are not installed anymore. After which you can click on upgrade Moodle database. It will take some time to install the plugin. So while the installation is going on, you may see the spinner loading up. And in the background, it basically extracts the plugin files and tries to install it onto the Moodle structure. So once the plugin is installed, it will give you a success message like this. After which you will be provided with a configuration page for this plugin. You can skip this if you want. You can configure it at a later point of time as well. It's not mandatory thing. But what as part of this webinar, we are going to cover this part. So by default, some default URL or test site URL will be configured over here. Now, if you want to configure it with your own BigBlueButton instance, so if you are already installed the BigBlueButton instance on your side, and you want to start using that BigBlueButton instance as part of your Moodle LMS, so I'll show you how it can be obtained. So for that, I'm going to log in onto one of our server. Okay, I've already logged in here. And if you have properly installed your BigBlueButton instance already here, then the only thing which you need to do is run a command like bbb-conf and --secret. So this needs to be run as a sudo user. Since I'm already a root user over here, so I don't require to mention sudo. In return, this command will provide you three different things. One is the endpoint URL, and then after that, a secret key. And this is what is required for us. So I'll just copy this. And you can paste it under the field BigBlueButton server URL. And then there's a secret key. So this shared secret key, you can paste your shared secret key over here. After which there are configurations you will see, like there are some default configurations which are already enabled. For example, whether the recording feature should be enabled by default or not. Okay, whether this feature can be edited or not by the instructors or by the course admins who are going to assign at a course level. So what type of icons or whether you're going to show the icons for recording management or not. So then there are other options like by default, if you want to start the recording whenever a meeting or a room is started by an instructor or a course admin, then you can set these values at the global level. So see other options like whether the import recordings should be enabled or not. So what I'll do is I'll enable it. I want to show one feature as part of this. So import recordings from deleted activities enabled. We can enable this as well. So there are all these are the global configurations, and you can manage it as an administrator if you have the admin privilege. So include recordings from deleted activities enabled by default. And this is not mandatory, but let it be enabled. Show only imported links enabled by default. I will enable it. So I'll talk about what exactly these imported links are. Probably you may not get an idea right away, but it's related to the recordings which you create for your courses, and if you want to import it onto some other courses, these are going to be helpful. So we'll see how this exactly works. So apart from that, the rest of the settings looks good. So another settings which is important here is wait for moderator enabled by default. So it is a good feature. We believe that it is important that a moderator should join only then the session should start. Again, if you are keeping it as enabled by default, you can always give a option to your instructor or whoever is a course admin to edit this. Okay, so this can be enabled by default. At the same time, they can choose on whether this should be disabled. In some cases, it might be a requirement where only the student needs to join and have some discussion in their own. So in those cases, it may not be required that a should be there. Moderator should be there. So that way, in that case, this option can be disabled. This option can be disabled. Then these are the settings related to your moderator ping. So if a moderator is a mandatory by default, then it will keep on checking until every 10 seconds whether the moderator has joined or started the session or not. So also it provides you the ability to set some default presentation. So if you want to have some banner, your marketing banner or your school banner, in place where every time a meeting is started, any meeting for that matter, by default, a presentation can be loaded over there, unless this is overridden by the instructors. You can also define the user limits. So suppose if you don't want more than 10 users uh, in any of the meeting which is running across your system, so this can be set. So this can be set to value 10, or it can be set up to any value. There is no limitation there. If you don't want to have any limitation, you just set it to 0 and it will have no limit. But what we suggest here is if you're running any of your BigBlueButton meeting, you at least set it to 100, because in one session, uh, having more than 100 users is not recommended because of the limitation on the free switch side. Free switch is one of the component on the BigBlueButton side which handles the audio. So to have a smoother audio quality, it is recommended to have users within a limit of 100. So you can also disable this disable the editing of this limit by the instructors or by the course admin, so that it remains as a global configuration, because as an admin you would like to have a control over this rather than giving a control to your course admins or your instructors. So then you can also define who all can be moderators by default. So probably the instructors assigned to your courses can be the moderators by default. Then and above role above them can also act as the moderators. So I'm just setting everyone as moderator, so they can by default act as a moderator. Learner should not be obviously the moderator; they can just have a participant role. So apart from these, there are other controls which gives you. There are other options which gives you uh, have more control over how the users are going to join, whether they will join with in muted mode or whether they're going to join with the webcam by default. Can they have private chat, or can they do something on public chat? So all these are different locking functionality and to gain more control over the users. So probably if you want to have more details about these, how the lock functionality works, you can refer to one of our previous webinar links. Our team will be able to add that, and you can get more information that how the lock functionality works in BigBlueButton. So once this base configuration is done, and you can just click on Save Changes. So once you have saved the changes, your plugin is installed. Next thing, what we can do is, as an admin, we can go to the virtual classroom. Here, I have already added a activity, BigBlueButton activity, and some name can be given to it, like classroom. So this can be actually also controlled by a presenter. So I'm right now admin here. So the same thing is possible by the presenter, and the same interface will be provided to the presenter as well, unless we make the permission changes. So if you see here, you can give a name to your activity, and then you can decide what type of instance it is going to be. So whether you want the room activity, means the session activity along with the recordings, or you want only the session or only the recordings. So I'll show you the recordings only part. Probably the room activity with recordings and room activity only can be understood by this demo itself. The recordings only, I'll try to create another course for you and show you how it can be utilized. So here you can add more descriptions if you want. Then coming to the activity and room settings, you can give some uh, welcome message to your participants. You can set it over here. Welcome to, say, physics class. Okay. Again, as a admin, I have the privilege to whether the wait for moderator option should be there or not. So as I was showing you in the global configuration, this can be edited by an instructor. We can have control even for that. So if you want the wait for the moderator to be a global configuration, it can be kept in. It can be kept unedited in the non-editing mode for your instructors in that plan. In that case. So rest of settings, view for recordings will show only imported links. Okay, so it can show both actually. I'll show you how the functionality work as I had mentioned. So these are the lock settings. You can have the lock settings as well. Suppose if you want to disable webcams for your participants, you can disable it. So I'll do that. Let's see what happens. And then there are other lock settings as well, so which, as I told you, you can refer to our previous webinars to get further understanding on this. Coming to the role assigned during live session. Okay, so as you saw, we kept these roles like demo admin, tree operation admin, then course admin, instructors as moderators by default. But I want to add participants as well. So by default, what I can do is I can keep all the users enrolled here as viewers, or I can specifically choose and define, say for example, if I choose Shashank, I can add Shashank as a viewer. So Shashank will be added as a viewer over here. And if I want even Viresh also as a viewer, I can add Viresh also as a viewer. Then I can assign an instructor as well. So if I want the 3D presenter as an instructor, what I will do is I'll add it, and then after adding, I'll change the role to moderator for for this particular user. So that way I can manage my users based on role and I can pick users one by one as well. The easiest way is, and the most commonly way would be that all the users who are enrolled as part of this course can becomes a viewer by default. And then after that, you can choose one specific user and assign them as a moderator for this. So that would be the most straightforward way. But for the demo purpose, yes, you can add the users individually as well. So the way it will be helpful here is if you want only session with one of the participants. Say, for example, if as a moderator I want to have a session only with Viresh, then I will add only Viresh, and in that case, Shashank won't be able to add log in onto the session. So other option which you have is schedule for session. So suppose if I want to time bound it, I can time bound it. I can enable these timing that when the session should open and when the session should close. So if I set, let's say at 7:25, the session should end and it should start at 7:20. So that's how it can be set. So for our demo purpose, we'll just keep it open so that the session can be started anytime. And apart from that, these are the LMS level of settings where you can uh, consider this activity for any completion tracking if you want to consider this activity. So probably what will happen is once the users have taken this activity or have taken this session, their uh, on their completion tracking report, this activity will appear automatically marked as completed. If you want, you can have some restrictions as well. These restrictions can be based on the grade. Suppose this session should be accessible only when you have obtained some specific grades on some particular course or an activity. So then in that case, you can configure it. You can also add a restriction by date, and there are again custom restrictions that which can be created here using your own logics. So this is the minimum configuration required for an activity. What I'll do is I'll save this, and the moment I save it, since I have the super admin role, I can also start this session. But let me do one thing. I will start this session as a presenter. So I added 3B presenter as a instructor over here. So let me start a different tab for you. So I have a different tab open here. I'm logging in as a presenter. So when I log in as a presenter, since I have assigned this presenter on this virtual classroom course under which we have this BigBlueButton activity. Okay, there's one change which I missed. I'll show you what. So as a site admin, whenever we add a plugin, so we need to also define the privilege for the instructors. So that privilege should be available at the activity level. So what I'm going to do here is for the instructor, I have not allowed the access so far to access this BigBlueButton activity. So as you can see, all the permissions related to BigBlueButton has not been set. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to allow all of them. So this is required for the very first time when you do the installation, and after the installation, this to whichever role you want to give the access to, this access should be provided. So I'll click on Save Changes. So now for the instructor role, I have made the changes in the privileges. And if I go back and try to refresh this, sorry, I didn't refresh it. Yeah. So now as an instructor, I can see that this live classroom physics, which was assigned to this presenter, 3D presenter, and it says that there are no recordings to show currently, and the conference room is ready, and users can join on this session. So when I click on join session, it starts the BigBlueButton meeting, and where it asks me to join in the listen mode only or in the microphone mode. Probably I'll join the listen mode only to avoid the echo with this session. But usually presenters or the moderators
Only
will be
person
joining
in this conference.
They will be joining in the microphone mode. So now you can see I added Shashank and Viresh as a earlier when I was actually adding them or enrolling them. I added them as a learner, so they can also join the same session. And if you notice here, the name of the user is same what has been assigned at the LMS level. This is because of LTI compatibility of BigBlueButton, and this LTI compatibility of BigBlueButton allows it to integrate it with any of the system, not only LMS, which is LTI compatible. Okay, and it can easily grab the information of the user, and it keeps the session also active. So if you have noticed, I didn't have to log in again on when this BigBlueButton session started. So it passes on the session as well as the some session variables like name and other details. So rest of the features, I think we have already covered in our previous webinars about BigBlueButton. So if you are interested in knowing about the features of BigBlueButton, probably our team will drop a link to the webinars of our previous session in the public chat. You can refer to them. So what I'll do is I'll do a quick recording over here so that I can show you how the import feature works. I'll keep it very short so that the recording gets processed as soon as possible. I'm going to end this meeting as a instructor. I'm ending this meeting now. Once the meeting has been ended, you will be reverted back to your previous page on the LMS site, and then this session will be ready to start. So recordings takes a little bit of time to appear. It at least takes 10 minutes of time for the processing. But since we have done a very small 2 or 3 seconds recording here just for the demo purpose, probably I'm expecting this recording to be available very soon. In the meanwhile, what we're going to do is we are going to see how to create a course and then add the activity, because the demo which I showed to you, there already the course was existing and the activity was already added. So now I'll show you how a new course can be created and how we can add the BigBlueButton activity in that. And I'm hoping meanwhile we will have the recordings also ready for you. So I'll go back to the administrator, and as an administrator, I'll go into the site administration, and under courses, we have manage courses and categories. So here you will see different categories which are available, and you can choose one of the category. You can create a new category and create a new course. So these are mainly the LMS side of features. We're not going to cover them in detail. I'm hoping most of you are comfort. I mean, they already know this, how to create a new course and how to create a new category if you are familiar with Moodle. So I'll just go ahead and create a quick course here. Let's call it demo of virtual classroom. And I'll keep it as a single activity format where I'm going to have that activity as BigBlueButton. So only one activity which will be available in the course will be BigBlueButton session. So rest of things, it's more related to the course configuration. But for us, this is the minimum configuration which is required. I'll go ahead and click on save and display. So when I click on save and display, the next step which it takes me to is to enroll the users. I click on enroll users. Probably I'll add the same set of users who I had earlier. Let me add uh, Viresh and Shashank as learners. Okay, I'm going to add my colleagues as learners. So once they're added, they will appear here. And let me add an instructor. So let's choose the same instructor which we used for our previous course and assign this user as an instructor role. So now what you see over here is this 3B presenter has got the instructor privilege. Viresh has got the learner privilege. Shashank, he has already got a client admin role at the system level, and at the course level, he again gets a learner privilege. So once this is done, you can click on proceed to course content. Since I have added this BigBlueButton activity, it will ask me to configure the activity. So again, I can mention second lecture of physics. I'll keep the settings minimum. Welcome to second lecture. I'll keep the rest of the settings as it is, and probably this time what I'm going to do is I'll keep all users enrolled. So because I have Shashank and Viresh enrolled onto this course, so they will act as a viewers. And for the instructor role also, we already have got moderator. So 3B presenter role, 3B presenter user will automatically have the moderator role here in this activity. So again, schedule for session, rest of things I'll keep it minimum. So I'll probably to show you what exactly the instance type does. So here I can keep it with recordings also. I can keep it with recordings only. In that case, probably the other settings may not be required about who are going to be the participants and who are going to be the moderator. So first, let me show you what happens if I set it recordings only. Just click on save and display. And let me quickly check back whether the recording on the previous course is available or not. Okay, so the recordings are still not ready. Anyway, let me give you a quick idea how the recordings can be configured. So suppose if once the recording has been processed, actually what happens is the recordings will appear here. So this is one of the activity which we took as a very first thing, and this was the course name virtual classroom. So now what happens is if I want the recordings of this session to be also available in my newly created course, I'll go to the courses, manage courses and categories. And if you see, this is the newly created course which we created right now. And we can go and see this course. So here there is an option for import recording links. So when you click on this, it gives you the option to choose the course from where you want to import the recording. So I can choose the course, virtual classroom, VCBB, probably. Okay, now you can see even the recording is available. So the recording got processed, and you just need to import this. So you see this small import icon. It will show you the list of recordings which are available under this course, and you just need to hit on this. So it will ask you for the confirmation. Once you say yes, what it will do is it will disappear from here, and if you go back, that same recording will start appearing under your newly created activity here. So this is how you can import the recording. And if you don't want this recording to be available till later point of time, you have both two options. One thing is you can unpublish for your participants, or you can just remove it. It will not delete at the server level, it will just remove it from this course activity level. So these recordings can be played as a participants, or as an enrolled user. You can just play this, and this will open it up on a separate tab. So whatever recording we did at that time, a small 2 or 3 seconds recording which we did will be, you can see that. So this was about a quick demo about how you can install the plugin, how you can do the settings in your BigBlueButton plugin, how you can create an activity, how you can assign the participants overall, and how you can manage your recordings. So how you can utilize the recordings of one session on your other sessions. Suppose if you want to create a new um, course and under which you want some recordings of your previous sessions, how this can be used. So I hope this must have given you some idea about how basically this integration works. So now I think we can take up some questions as well. Just look at the public chat. So one of the question I have is, can I run BigBlueButton and Moodle on the same server? Ideally, you can. There is no harm in that. But I mean, it is possible. But the only thing is, it is recommended to provide BigBlueButton its own dedicated instance. Okay, and usually it is recommended, as we have been talking about in our previous sessions also, that BigBlueButton best runs in a bare metal server. Moodle, you can still run it on a VM node, okay, a virtual machine. But BigBlueButton, it is recommended to give it a bare metal server. So yes, it can be run on the same server, but it requires a little bit of configuration, because if you are familiar with BigBlueButton installation, BigBlueButton runs on Nginx. Okay, it utilizes Nginx to serve to you all the web contents. But when it comes to Moodle usually most of the installations people do it on Apache web server. And if you're planning to run Moodle with Nginx, probably first thing you will have to do is you'll have to configure Nginx with a PHP uh, compiler. Okay, so that's something you'll have to do it first before you can run both BigBlueButton and Moodle on the same server. So then the second question is BigBlueButton chokes once the number of user goes beyond 150 concurrent users. Uh, so I'm just trying to understand this question. If your question is that in a single session itself, if you're trying to have 150 concurrent users, then yes, that is not recommended. But if you're planning your session, you're planning multiple sessions where you're not going to have more than 100 users in a session, because that's a usual scenario. If you're going to have a BigBlueButton session and you're going to have more than 150 users in a single session itself, that becomes a webinar. Probably you want to live stream, you would like to live stream your session in that case. Okay, so that is the way out I would suggest. But if you're planning multiple sessions in the same BigBlueButton server, yes, the limitations would be because we have been also doing some testing, and we find it to be smoothly running around 130 users in a session. And if you want to have multiple sessions with that kind of a number, say for example in one session you want to have 100 users, in another session which you want to start parallelly, again you want to have 100 sessions in that. In that case, what we would suggest you is to have a load balancer based setup and not to have a single server deployment. Again, why I'm saying that is because of the limitations on the free switch side. There are certain limitations. At the same time, your resources, you don't need to give too much of resources to your one of the server. You plan it in such a way that 8 GB of instance and a 4-core processor should be good enough for one of the or each of the instances which you're going to have in your pool behind the load balancer. So that way you can scale up. So scale up to a level where you can have more number of concurrent users. Of course, you need to control your per session users. The number of sessions can grow, and of course, the overall concurrent number of users can also grow, but you will have to control the number of users in each session that way. So as I had mentioned, the way out, if you still want to have more number of users in your session, probably treat it like a webinar. Give them a live streaming link. Give your users a live streaming link where they can join. Because I don't see that every user will be interacting over there in the session. So probably that's how it can be managed. Have it convert it into a webinar. Like even this session which we are conducting currently, it's going live on YouTube. So I hope I was able to answer your question. Probably if you have some specific follow-up question, you can paste on the public chat and see. I'll try to answer that. Then the next question is, can we set up for notifications on Moodle about the BigBlueButton session? Yeah, we can set up a notification. It's already a default option available as part of your plugin. It's the only thing is your Moodle should be configured with the SMTP servers. And another option which Moodle provides is it gives you in-app notification. It's not in-app notification, in-web notifications as well. So it will send you a message whenever a event is scheduled. Like if I, as an instructor, schedule a session for 5th of November, 6 o'clock in the evening, then all the participants or all the enrolled users will get a notification about it if I choose to send them. So there is an option notify users. So probably I can show you again. Let me do the screen sharing. If I go and edit this, so you have the option here. So if you, whenever you're creating this session, you have the option to enable this, notify this change to users enroll, and they will be notified about the if even if there has been any change in the timings, or if there has been any change in the name of this classroom name, they will be notified about it. So the next question is, what happens if the same user tries to launch BigBlueButton session from two different Moodle sessions, assuming Moodle does not have the control and have allowed duplicate logins? If I understand your question correctly, you're talking about two different Moodle sessions. So actually, the way it works is whenever you install BigBlueButton and create a BigBlueButton session, internally BigBlueButton will assign a meeting ID to it, and that meeting ID is a randomly generated. So even if your server is same, even if your BigBlueButton server is same, the meeting ID will be different. So my understanding is it will create two different. It will log you into two different meetings, and there will be no overlap in that case. So the next question I have here is, I need 50 classrooms to be created and 100 concurrent students. Is that possible? So 100 concurrent students, again, the question needs to be further elaborated here, whether the concurrent 100 concurrent students overall will be there, or under each classroom there will be 100 concurrent 100 students. So, and if you want to run all these 50 classrooms parallelly, then of course the total number of concurrent users for you would be around 5,000. So there are two cases. I mean, one could be 5,000 concurrent users, another could be 100 concurrent users. So classroom limitations are not there. Okay, so you don't have any classroom limitations here. You can run as many classrooms as you want. The only thing is you need to you need to do your capacity planning on the basis of the concurrent users. So if you're talking about 100 concurrent users, it's quite one single deployment, one single server deployment is good enough for that. But if you're planning 5,000 concurrent users, which is quite huge, then in that case, of course, load balancer based setup has to come into picture, and probably we may also have to look into how we can optimize that. I mean, in the sense, is there a possibility to efficiently manage your classrooms rather than running 50 classrooms parallelly? Is there a possibility that you can schedule your classrooms in such a way that it doesn't have 50 concurrent classrooms with each 100 sessions, which each classroom are having 100 users? Because 5,000 concurrent users will be huge, and it has to be properly planned, the load balances. And we may also have to think about developing some scripts which can auto scale it, because you would not like to run all whatever number of servers are required uh, for handling such kind of load all the time. So we may also think about how can we bring down the load with some automations here. Can the integration detect if the same instructor schedules two sessions starting at the same time or partly overlapping time? As of now, no, but it can be done as an enhancement. So probably event manager can be additionally developed, which takes care of avoiding the overlapping sessions by the same instructor. But it is not available right now. This is something I can tell you. This current plugin which we have installed, it doesn't have that. Then the question is, how do I archive the recordings? Now, archiving the recordings is something which requires server-side expertise. Right now, from the plugin side, there is no capability given for that. In general, uh, what we suggest is you plan your storage in such a way that it at least be there for 6 months. So suppose if you have started the recordings and everything, you have integrated the BigBlueButton today. So you plan your storage in such a way that it will be there for next 6 months, and all the archiving process can be done in the 5th month from today. If let's say we have planned our storage for 6 months, plan every 5 months that archiving process archive can be done, and this needs to be taken care at the server end. So someone who is familiar with Ubuntu Linux uh, Linux system, they will be able to archive the recordings and can transfer it to some cheap storage or probably a cost-effective storage. Another option which we suggest is, if you don't want to take the headache of archiving, you have a network-mounted drive. And these days, most of the cloud providers, they provide you network-mounted drive option, which can be over the period of time, which can be scaled up. So suppose if you have taken a 500 GB of storage, and after 6 months of time you are coming across that okay, 500 GB is not good enough, you need another 500 GB, you can add or expand the same storage and add another 500 GB over there. So that basically reduces the headache of archiving. But again, archival process also can be automated. If there is something you don't want to have expand your storage and you don't want to spend more cost on your storage, then in that case, the automations, there can be shell scripts which can be developed, which takes care of for automatic archival process. So probably other questions, and because we have a hard stop at 8. So I'll take one more question here. One of the question here is, what is a bare metal server? Bare metal server is more of a dedicated hardware. Suppose One example, a simple example I can give you is the way we have our desktops and the laptops in our offices, right? And it has got a hardware dedicated to it. That it may be a 8 GB RAM machine, and it may be it may have 4 core processors, and but the hardware is completely dedicated for that machine. So whoever has installed a new OS and working on it, that hardware is dedicated completely for that user. It's not shared between other users. Usually, bare metal servers are similar. I mean, it's a similar thing. If you can consider it as that someone somewhere has completely dedicated a machine for you, okay, and you have the complete hold on to the hardware. I mean, the hardware will be dedicated for your processing purpose only. Now, when we talk about virtual machines, because most of the cloud servers which we have, the way they work is they will be sharing the hardware. So there will be it is built on the concept of hardware virtualization. Okay, and what they do is there will be a, a big what do you say, um, kind of a very large specification hardwares will be there running on one server, and in that multiple virtual nodes will be created using some automation script. Whenever you spin up a new server based on the specification or the configuration you define, they will spin up a virtual node. So it's built on hardware virtualization. It's not a completely dedicated uh, hardware which you're getting. It's like they share a large set of a large hardware across multiple virtual nodes. So that's how most of the cloud servers these days are working. But bare metal servers, they will have the dedicated hardware for your usage, and they will be quite powerful in terms of, or even compared to the cloud servers, other virtual cloud servers. I think we will have to stop here. We have had a hard stop. I hope I was able to answer most of the queries. The queries which I haven't been able to pick up, probably our team will get back to you with an FAQ document on whatever the queries have been asked. We'll send the FAQs back to all these queries and answers to all the users who have joined us today. So that's all for today. I hope this was a helpful session and a fruitful session, and we'll see you on next webinar.